In the middle of a sprawling forest, two animals went about their lives in strikingly different ways. Luna, an old owl with soft gray feathers and wise golden eyes, had seen more seasons than most animals in the forest. Her feathers had faded from the darker grays of her youth, and her wings, though still strong, moved slowly and steadily. Over her years, she had learned the rhythms of nature and moved with them, taking her time, savoring each moment. Luna knew that life didn't always need to be a struggle. Sometimes it was better to pause, observe, and let things unfold. Meanwhile, there was Oliver, a young rabbit bursting with energy and ambition. His soft brown fur was always a little ruffled, his eyes bright with a constant drive to do more. Oliver believed success meant being everywhere, doing everything, and pushing himself further than he thought possible. His life was a blur of activity, and he was constantly darting around the forest, tirelessly striving to achieve something he wasn't even sure he could define. For him, success was an endless race, and the more he raced, the more he believed he was getting closer to winning. One early autumn morning, as the first rays of sunlight seeped through the trees, Oliver was already on his feet, determined to check off everything on his to-do list. Today, he decided, would be a day of ultimate productivity. He would gather enough food for winter, fix up his burrow, and even plant some new flowers around his little patch of the forest. Every hop was a dash, every second filled with urgency. He barely stopped for a breath as he bounded from task to task. But as the hours passed, exhaustion crept in. His heart pounded, and his breaths grew shallow. Every leap felt heavier, and his usual speed began to fade. Still, he kept going, driven by a nagging thought that if he didn't finish everything, he would somehow fall behind. In his mind, stopping meant failing. From her perch high in a tree, Luna watched him quietly. She'd been observing his tireless rush for days, sensing his growing fatigue. She could tell he was running himself ragged, but she knew that simply telling him to slow down wouldn't help him understand why he needed to. Luna hoped he'd come to realize it on his own. By midday, the forest grew quiet. The trees cast longer shadows, and the air was filled with the soft sounds of the forest settling into the afternoon. Oliver, still pushing himself through his long list, stumbled into a quiet glade by the stream. His legs felt like they'd given out from under him as he collapsed onto the grass, panting heavily. Every part of him ached. Luna had been waiting for this moment. She flew down gracefully and landed next to him. Her golden eyes looked at him with a calm kindness. "Oliver," she said softly, "why are you pushing yourself so hard?" Oliver looked up, his breathing ragged. "I have so much to do," he replied, a hint of frustration in his voice. "If I don't finish everything, I'll fail. I can't afford to miss anything." Luna watched him thoughtfully. "I see how hard you're working, but you don't seem happy. You seem like you're always on the run. Are you enjoying any of it?" Oliver frowned. "Enjoying it? No. I'm doing this because I have to. Success doesn't come to those who just sit around and wait." Luna gave him a gentle smile. "Oliver, success isn't always about doing more or moving faster. Sometimes, it's about slowing down and being present, paying attention to what truly matters. Have you ever thought that maybe you're missing something by moving so fast?" As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the forest, Luna led Oliver to a quiet part of the forest, away from the busy trails. Under the soft light, she began to share a memory. "When I was young, I was like you," she began, her voice calm and reflective. "I thought the harder I worked, the more I'd achieve. I'd gather every twig and leaf for my nest, convinced that if I kept working, I'd make it perfect." Oliver listened, his curiosity piqued. One night, after hours of building, I was exhausted. I could barely lift my wings, but I didn't want to stop. Eventually, I just had to rest. And in that quiet moment, I looked around and noticed something. I realized that my nest didn't need to be perfect. What mattered was that it felt like home. Luna paused, her eyes softening with the memory. Once I stopped obsessing, I felt lighter. I could appreciate the simple beauty around me, and suddenly, life felt so much richer. The forest was beautiful, not because I'd made it so, but because I'd allowed myself to see it. The next morning, Oliver decided to try something different. Instead of racing through his tasks, he took a moment to sit under a tree. He let himself relax, breathing in the fresh forest air, noticing the details he usually missed. The way the sun caught the edges of the leaves, the soft rustle of a breeze moving through the branches, the quiet hum of insects in the background. He spent the day moving at a slower pace, focusing on one task at a time, but with a sense of calm he hadn't felt before. He gathered food for the winter, but he took breaks. He worked on his burrow, but he wasn't obsessing over every little detail. When he looked around, he saw the beauty of his surroundings with fresh eyes. Days went by, and Oliver felt a real change. His work was still getting done, but he no longer felt the constant pressure to do it all at once. He noticed that his energy lasted longer, that he was more present with each task. His burrow was cozy and welcoming. His food supply was well prepared, and his garden bloomed with bright, colorful flowers. One afternoon, he found Luna perched on a branch, observing him as she always did. Oliver approached her with a grateful smile. "I think I understand now," he said. "Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means allowing myself to stop pushing all the time and just be. I don't have to control every little thing." Luna looked at him with pride, her golden eyes shining. "Exactly, Oliver. Real success isn't a race. It's found in the balance between working hard and allowing yourself the space to breathe, to see what's around you, to be part of it. Sometimes, we achieve more by letting go than by holding on too tightly." Oliver nodded, his heart feeling lighter than it had in a long time. "Thank you, Luna. I don't feel like I'm missing out anymore. I feel more complete."